Hey guys, it's Shan, and it's been a while since my last video. We've been super busy transitioning into the clinic, and I took my board exams about a month ago. So I kind of just wanted to make this video to kind of explain how I've studied for this exam, and so I'll be dividing up this video into two parts. So the first part's going to be the big chunk of the video where I'm going to just talk about how I personally studied for this exam. And the second part is just going to be things that I did to kind of just unwind and relax during the studying period. Before we begin, I do want to thank INBDE Booster for sponsoring this video and allowing me to use their resource to prepare for this exam. They're one of the resources that I use, and they have over 2,000 plus practice questions that I thought were fairly representative of the actual exam, pre-made Anki and Quizlet decks, study guides, and a full-length mock exam. So if you're interested in using this resource, go to their website, inbdebooster.com, and use my discount code SMILESWITHSHAN for 10% off. So I personally set aside 2 months preparing for this exam. During my first month, I primarily focused on reviewing content with mental dental videos and Anki. During my second month, I utilized INBDE Booster and Bootcamp for practice questions and mock exams to prepare for the exam. The mental dental videos are super helpful and fairly concise videos with a focus on high-yield content that's tested on the exam. I decided to get the PowerPoints from their Patreon to help me kind of stay a little more on task since there are a lot of videos and some of them do get fairly lengthy. I use these videos to help me refresh everything we've learned so far, as well as trying to better focus what's going to be tested on this exam. Since there are so many videos, I recommend setting goals as to how many you want to try to get through a day and then try your best to stick to them. Anything else I needed a little more review, I refer to the study guides that INBDE Booster made, and it's in-depth enough for the exam and offered me another chance to see the content to review it. I do know a lot of people use Anki as their main way to learn content through active recall, but for me personally, it doesn't really work that well. So I use it exclusively for when I was waiting for things on the go, like between classes or waiting for lab work to set. I used a mix of pre-made decks and decks that I made myself, and I used it to help me broke memorize a lot of pharmacology and oral pathology, as I had difficulty just trying to logic through many of these conditions. Month 2 for me was all about doing these practice questions. I'm not really the best standardized test taker, so I began using INBDE Bootcamp and then started using Booster towards the end. I worked through over 4,000 questions between these two resources and found that most of these questions were fairly comparable to the exam that I took. Going through all these questions and reading written explanations really helped me learn how the exam was going to be like and how they asked their questions, so it really helped me figure out what I needed to further review and buzzwords for certain types of questions. What I really liked about Booster though is that they had a lot of video explanations in addition to their written explanation, and it kind of helped me kind of figure out how to think through questions and eliminate the correct and wrong answer choices. Anything I wasn't sure about, I made quick notes in my notebook and I was constantly reviewing them throughout this month. I originally had been typing up my notes but found that I never reviewed them, so I personally thought that handwriting my notes was a lot more helpful. Since doing so many questions a day can be kind of overwhelming, I would make sure that you're able to stay focused for decent periods of time and definitely take periodic breaks. Whenever I was having difficulty staying focused, I would generally use the Pomodoro method with the Forest app. It's just what I had on hand, in a way to kind of gamify the time to focus. And if you're not familiar with the Pomodoro technique, there's plenty of YouTube videos out there, but just for a quick explanation, a Pomodoro is generally 25 minutes of focus, then a 5-minute break. Generally, you'll do 4 Pomodoros, and then you'll take a longer break, usually a time of your choice, which I usually would do 30 minutes. About 3 weeks before my exam, I took a mock exam from Bootcamp, and then 2 weeks before my exam, I took the mock exam from Booster. And so for those who aren't super familiar with the INBDE format, the exam is split over 2 days. Day 1 has 4 sections, 3 of them having 100 individual questions each, and the 4th section has 60 questions, which are case-based. Day 2 has 2 sections, which are case-based and have 70 questions each. So for a grand total of 500 questions, and that's a lot of questions. So I took these mock exams as a way to gauge what it's like to answer these questions under a time constraint and build up the mental stamina for the exam. It is a lot of questions, but if possible, I do recommend trying to review the questions you missed right after the exam while you still remember the questions to learn from the mistakes and why you thought you chose the answer choices. I also think it's super helpful to take these mock exams because it will help you get a little more familiar with the user interface of how the exam will look like on the exam day. All the stuff before is probably stuff that you wanted to hear me talk about, but it's also super important to take some breaks to rest and recharge during the time you're preparing for the exam, since studying for this exam is kind of like a marathon. Every day I blocked off around an hour or two to unwind with some video games because that's what I use to relax, and the rest of the available time was dedicated to studying and reviewing. I usually would take Friday evenings completely off and didn't do any studying related things then, and then either stayed in and rested or went out to go hang out with some friends. Also, if you're a stress eater like me, try and stock up with some healthier snacks just so you don't accidentally eat a whole bag of chips and regret it later. And don't forget to get up and move a little bit and stretch. So if you've gotten this far, thank you so much for watching, and I hope it's been a little bit helpful to get some insight on how I personally prepared for this exam. And I will link all of the resources that I've mentioned in the description box below, and best of luck to everybody who's preparing and taking the exam soon. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye!